We're building this trading robot. It's a multi-currency grid management system with quite a lot of advanced features. It's been there on MQL Marketplace for quite some time now. It sells for $2,800. It boasts a very strong performance, consecutive months in profit, and it comes with full documentation, including features, how to install, requirement, risk settings, strategy, and all that good stuff. But we will build it ourselves, step by step, with all the functionality and this pretty looking panel. Now this will be a series of videos as the trading robot is quite advanced and we need to build a lot of functionality. And it seems to have been very intelligently built. In the first video, we tried to dissect the functionality of the EA. We tried to figure out how does the EA work, how's the initial trade opened, how are the grids formed and maintained, how's the TPs and stop loss calculated, and some other really cool features like starting the grid from a certain level, placing bookmark trades in the beginning, smart TPs, smart stop losses, smart distancing of the grid depending on the volatility in the market at that point in time. And then also looked at some additional features like news filter, drawdown controls, additional restrictions, and a lot more. If you're joining us from this video, I would strongly urge you to start from the first video, because building what we are trying to build without understanding what it is that we are trying to build is like getting into calculus without first understanding arithmetics. I would not recommend. We don't want trauma vlogging in the end. Now, like always, I will make the codes available in the store for anybody who wants to download it for reference. But please understand this. I am making the code file available for reference. I am in no way saying that you're going to make Elon Musk look like a baker from the 3rd century by simply downloading and applying it on the EA. I don't suppose this is going to make multi-millionaires overnight. In the same breath, it is a very good EA as long as you know how to use it properly. An EA is like a tool, just like a hammer is a tool. Now, if you don't know how to use it, evolution is not going to be happy with its generosity of blessing us with thumbs. With that out of the way, let's start building first the backbone of the EA. Then we're going to put a skeleton, then some meat around it, and eventually a very pretty smooth skin all over. In today's video, we're going to write the fundamental structure on which the entire EA is going to be built. And we're going to get to a position where we open up the first trade. Then in the later videos, we will open up grids, we will do the smart distancing, then we're going to do all the lot sizing methods, different types of calculations for the lot sizes for the grid based on various different ways that you can manage the grid. Then we're going to look at TPs and stop losses, and also additional functionalities like not sending the TPs and a stop loss to the broker, but managing it internally. Then we're going to put some really cool flavors and colors on the EA in terms of drawdown controls, FTMO stuff, news filters, other sorts of restrictions, margins, safety measures, and this extremely pretty looking panel. Once again, I'm not going to build it with a green Pac-Man, I'm going to build it with a yellow Pac-Man because I just couldn't find a green Pac-Man. In the end, it's going to be a journey, so buckle up. And for the faint of heart, user discretion is advised. Now with no more shenanigans, let's start. Okay, so we start here, and in the YouTube folder, I'm going to create another folder. And let's call it Waka by Mr. Caffrey. And I'll copy the name. And then within this folder, we're going to create a new MQL5 file, Waka by Mr. Caffrey, next, and next. And here we have the opening template. I'll clean it up. Okay, so here we are with the clean template. We have the onInitialization function, which is going to be run on every time the EA is initialized. Then the deinitialization, which is the opposite. So when the EA is deinitialized or it's removed from the chart, that's what all the codes here are going to be run at. And then you have the OnTick function, which is every time there is a price change or a new price data arrives, all the codes which we are going to write here are going to be triggered then. So we're going to start at the top and we're going to add a few properties. So we're going to add a strict property and a description property. The description property is self-explanatory. The strict property basically asks, when we compile, we ask the MQL to do a very strict compilation. So go through the codes and properly look through for any errors or warnings and stuff like that. Then we are going to include a trade.mqh file, which is the file that you have here in the include folder, trade.mqh. And these are all the codes which come pre-written with MQL, which help us with all the trading operations. So in terms of opening trades, modifying trades, getting information on the positions, getting information on the order and things like those. So for trading operations, we're going to use the class C trade and we are linking it to a variable trade. For position information, we're linking this class to a variable by the name position info. So we're going to use position info to get all the position related information. And then C order info class, which we are linking to order information variable, which I think we are not going to use within this year, but this is just my general practice to create this. So I have all the trading operations in trade, all the position information in position, and all the order information, which are the sell stop, buy stop, limit, sell limits, and those kind of things in this variable. And then we're going to create a few enums. So the first enum that we're going to create is the lot sizing enum. And enums are basically, if for example, I go back to my scalping year, and I pull down here, if I go to my scalping year and go to the input, what you can see is, for example, here the trading system applied, you can select from this drop down of fixed pips or percentage. So that's an enum that we're using. Or here, for example, you can choose fixed loss, percentage of balance, equity or free margin, but that's only because to this variable I have assigned an enum which has these 4 values. So that's what we're doing here. We're creating an enum which is going to have these members. So low risk, 20%, mid risk, significant risk, high risk, dynamic lots based on equity, dynamic lot based on balance, lots based on deposit load, and fixed lots. So these are the options that we're going to give to our user. We're creating the enum by the name lot sizing enum, and we're going to assign this enum to a variable, which then in turn will make all of this available in the dropdown. So that's the first enum. Then I'm going to create 3 more enums, which is allow buy sell enum, where we're going to give the user the ability to select only sell, only buy, or allow both buy and sell. And then in case the drawdown is hit, it's triggered, what action do we want? So we're giving 4 different possibilities to the user. So to prohibit the new grid until restart, prohibit opening up a new grid, close all the trades and stop trading until restart, and close the trade and stop trading for 24 hours. So these are the options that we are giving. And then how are we going to calculate the drawdown? Is it going to be only for this strategy? So not calculate the drawdown for the entire account, but only for trades which are opened by this strategy, because you can also have somebody who applies this in the charts, but then also open manual trades, or on the same account there are multiple EAs. So do we want to calculate the drawdown for the entire account or only for the strategy? So these are the enums I'm creating, and then I'm going to create a structure. And we're creating a structure by the name symbol information. So we can assign the symbol information structure to a variable. And then within that variable, you will have all of these sub variable available. So you can, for example, if we create a variable by the name array size, and then we assign to it this, then we can use array size dot symbol name, array size dot last main time frame update, array size dot OPO time frame update. So all of these then become available as a dot later on, which we can use to assign different properties of that variable. I'm not going to go through all of them, but just a few main ones. For example, the main time frame, the last time frame, updating this. So what is the time? Then can buy and can sell as a bool, which is true or false. And this we are going to use to see whether or not we buy or we place a sell order. And then various properties like has the grid open, has the OPO been triggered, what's the smart multiplier, what is the Bollinger Bandwidth on this symbol, other things like days of the week, average price, last buy average price, last sell average price, last buy TP, last sell TP. Last time the grid was open on buy, last time the grid was open on sell, and those kind of properties we can store in one variable then using a dot and using all of these sub members of those variables. So we create this, and now we can go ahead and actually create variables which are going to be available for the user to select from. So these are all input variables. We start by saying input group. So as a header, select the risk setting. And here we are creating all of these variables. So for example, if I compile now and hit the play button and stop, then I can see here now our EA has been created. Waka Waka by Mr. Caffrey. And within that EA, now we have this select the risk setting and all of these. And now because we assigned this lot size enum to lot sizing method, this enum, therefore now we have this drop down available to select the low risk setting, medium, significant, high, dynamic lots, fixed lots, and those kind of things. And here we allow to buy and sell this enum. So allow to buy sell has now sell only, buy only, or buy and sell. So these enums are also populated. So we ask the user if we can allow opening a new grid, true or false. And then the lot sizing, depending on what method is chosen. Now if it is fixed lots, then what is the value of the fixed lots? If he has chosen dynamic value based on equity or balance, then what is that dynamic lot size? Then if he has chosen load percentage of deposit load, then what is that percentage? Then the fixed initial deposit, which is only for tester, because what can happen with the grid, one way to use the grid strategies is you start with a 5,000 balance, and as it makes profit, you take that profit out. So you always keep the initial balance at 5,000. Because one day, it's not a question of when, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when the grid is gonna bite the dust and the strategy is gonna blow. So what you're banking on is that you make enough profit and take it out before the account is blown. So if you have a starting balance of 1,000 euros and you're constantly taking the profit out, keeping the initial balance at 1,000, so that is all, that 1,000 is all that you're risking on the strategy. And if you want to test it like this, then the user can select here a true. And in that case, we will keep the fixed initial deposit for lot size calculation. And instead of using the equity or the current balance after the profit, we're always going to revert back to fixed initial deposit. Then what's the maximum lot? Do we allow auto split? Which basically means, and on larger accounts, let's suppose if the lot size calculation is giving us 200 lots, but the broker is only allowing 100 lot size. So in that case, do we allow auto split? So that 200 calculation is then auto split into 2 trades and we open 2 trades instead of 1? Or do we revert back to, if it is false, then we revert back to whatever is the maximum allowed by the broker. So even though our calculation is giving us 200 lot size, we still go with the 100 instead of dividing it into 2. Then the max spread and slippage, and then how many symbols the user is allowing the grids to open at. So even though there might be 4 currencies that you're applying it on, but as soon as there are 2 grids on 2 currencies, you don't allow opening of the grids on more currencies. So how many maximum symbols at one time can have grids? Then allow hedging, meaning if there is a buy grid open, do you allow a sell grid to open as well? Or if there is a buy grid, then you don't allow a sell grid. Do you allow trading on holidays? And holidays here basically mean between the 25th of December and the 3rd of January. So do you allow trading during that time? Then allow to buy sell, it's like, well, we have already seen buy only, sell only, and both. A minimum free margin in percentage, 0 is disabled. Maximum drawdown in percentage and maximum drawdown in money. So that we trigger the drawdown once that level of maximum drawdown is hit. And then what's the action, which is out of these 4. And then how do we calculate, based on strategy or on account? Then we go to the strategy settings, which is how many symbols, what are the symbols separated by comma, the time to start trading, time to stop trading, what's the hour. Then Bollinger Band period, as we saw in the strategy testing, the Bollinger Bands are going to be used primarily for TP setting, but we need to create the Bollinger Bands. So what's the period for Bollinger Band? and then the RSI period and the RSI value. And as we saw in the actual EA, the RSI value is what determines from 50, the middle RSI, how much higher and lower do we place the buy and the sell order. So the default position is 15, so that's going to give you 65 and 35 as the ranges for RSI where the trades are going to open. And then you have the TP settings. So what's the initial TP, which is the TP that's initiated on the first trade. Then do you use weighted TP? And by weighted TP, it will mean that once there is a grid and it's going to open at different lot sizes, do we weigh the lot sizes as well from the average price? Then the grid TP, meaning initial TP was 10, but for the grid TP, do you want to set a different value? Break even after this, so ignore all the TP settings of how much TP do we want. After a certain level, so grid opens level 1 grid trade, then the level 2 grid trade, and maybe you say that after level 3, enough is enough, let's set it to break even so that at least we can get out. Hide TP, which is like a lot of people want to like, no, I don't want to send the TP to the broker because there's going to be a TP or stop loss hunt. So no, I'm going to just calculate it and keep it inside. So that's the hide TP. Use the OPO method, which is if you have sent the TP to the broker, then it doesn't really matter because as soon as the price gets there, the TP is going to be triggered. But if you have chosen the hide TP, then you're keeping the TPs and the stop losses internally. In which case, we can have the OPO method, which is only on open price only, which means that we're only going to close the trade once a full candle has closed above the TP. I don't know why you would want to do that, because if the TP is hit, the TP is hit. I mean, on the stop loss, I understand, but on the TP, to use the OPO method, for me, just doesn't make any sense. But because this is part of the EA, so I'll build it and I'll explain it, but I'll not spend too much time on that. Then the OPO time frame, which can be different, because you want to see a candle closing above the TP in order to close the position. Then do we want to do it on the 15-minute chart itself, which the EA is going to run at, or do you want to use a 5-minute chart or a 10-minute chart or become, be fancy about it? Then a smart TP is going to be based on Bollinger Bands. Instead of these initial TP situation, we're going to calculate TP based on Bollinger Band because that gives us a dynamic TP. So when the Bollinger Bands expand, our TP also expand, because the market is volatile and then we want to have a higher TP. But when the market is ranging and is very dull, then the Bollinger Band is going to shrink, and so our TP also shrinks down and comes closer to the actual trade to give us more chances of hitting the TP in a less volatile market as well. Do not change or adjust the TP unless there is a new grid level that opens, and only when a new grid level opens, then you do the calculation of the TP and then adjust the TP. Then you have the stop loss setting, again hide and grid stop loss is like, do you want to set a stop loss? If nothing, then we're going to use 1,000 pips. Then we look at the grid settings and multipliers. So what is the distance between the grids? So it's 35 points or 35 pips. So if the initial trade is here, and the next trade is going to open at a distance of 35 pips. But because we're going to be opening trades only on new candles, so it might not be exactly 35 pips, but it's a minimum of 35 pips. Then a smart distance, and then the lot multiplier. So the first lot is going to be whatever the lot size calculation gives based on the risk that we have chosen here, lot sizing method. But then the second one is going to be the same, for example, multiplied by 1. But then for the third to fifth trade, you might want to apply a different multiplier. So we start increasing and martingale. If you set it to 1, then it's not a martingale, it's just a grid. If you set it to a value higher than 1, then you're martingale, so you're increasing the size every time by a factor of 2. And then from the 6th trade onward, you apply a 1.5. These are the default values. And then what are the maximum number of trades? And then the question is grid level to start. And these two are the complex settings, which basically means that the first trade is going to open here, for example. But do you want to open it already? I mean, if you're expecting that the price is going to go against you, and then you're going to open the first level, and then it's going to go against you again, and you're going to open the second level and the third level, then if you're already expecting that, why not start from the level 3? So in that case, we place a very small minimum 0.01 trade at the base level, at the 1.0 level, at the first level, and then only from level 2 we start to go. It's like, okay, now we actually enter the full lot sizing. Let's just place a marker so that we can actually calculate the lot sizing. But let's just put minimum lot, minimum lot, minimum lot, and then go from level 3, the actual lot sizing. And then we have the last one, which is the trade comment, and a UID, which is a unique identifier for this particular instance of the EA. Because we're going to create magic numbers based on a base magic number that we're going to not ask the user for. And then we're going to change that magic number or base magic number, add to it a direction, so it can tell us whether it's a buy or it's a sell. And then also the levels at the end, which is, well, is it the first trade? Is it the second trade? Is it the third trade? Is it the fourth trade within the grid? So we're going to create a separate magic number for every trade. But then if the user wants to apply the same EA on the same account twice, that's where the UID comes into place, which is a different instance. So that's, you're going to change this if you're going to apply more than one instance on the same account. So these are our input variables. If I compile now and we go back, now we have all of this appearing in the inputs tab. These are all the variables which we are asking the user to provide us information on. And then come global variables. So we're going to create a tick counter variable. What is the main time frame that we're going to apply this EA on? We're not giving this to the user to decide. It is fixed within the EA. And this is a symbol array variable. So it's an array because it's going to have more than one currency. You could call it currency array. I'm calling it symbols array. So symbols array. So it's going to store all these symbols, 1, 2, 3. And this is the symbol where we are using the structure. So this symbol array is going to have the sub members by using the dot, and then you can choose one of these properties within that. So this is a very dynamic variable that we're creating. Not only that it can have these three currencies, so it can be Australian New Zealand, Australian Canadian dollar, or New Zealand Canadian dollar, but within that currency, with the dot, then you can access all of these members of the variable as well. And then the magic number base. So this is the actual magic number, but we're going to be using this base to convert it into a different magic number for every single trade. So we can find the direction of the trade and also the level of the trade within that grid. Then epsilon is just a value 0.0001, which is just above the zeros. And this we're going to use throughout the year to check whether or not the value is a valid value. So it's bigger than 1. And then you have the current hour. I mean, we're just creating these variables and we're setting it to an initial value, whether or not there is a simple error list, whether or not the drawdown has been triggered, so it's false. Whether we want to stop trading until restart, it's false. How many cooldown hours in case the drawdown has triggered, 0. Initial balance 0, and initialize as true. So these are the global variables that we're going to use. And then the indicators that we're going to use within the EA are the moving average and the standard deviation, which we are going to use to create the Bollinger Band calculation. And we're going to do manual calculations for Bollinger Band because on multi-currency EAs, MQL struggles with updating the Bollinger Band values for every currency. So we're going to manually calculate it. And then RSI, because our EA gridding is based on RSI. And then the ATR 96 and 672, which we are going to use to determine whether there is more volatility in the market by dividing the faster ATR divided by the slower ATR to see whether or not there is more volatility in the market right now, because then the value is going to be above 1. Then we go to initialization, and here we're going to start by printing trade comment initializing. So when the EA is loaded, we're going to get a message. Then I'm going to set the chart integer, the grid, to false, because I like to see no grid on my, this just looks cleaner. If you want to see the grid like this, then you can skip this or set it to true. Then tester hide indicator, I want to hide all the indicators. I don't want to see it on the chart in the tester. And then a comment, which is going to be printed here. And then as the start, we said the drawdown cooldown hour is 0. Stop trading until restart is false, and drawdown triggered is false. So there is no drawdown at the initialization of the year. I mean, hopefully. And then we're going to be using the onTimer function. So if not MQL tester and not optimization, so it's not a tester, and we're not in the optimization mode or testing mode, back testing. So we are in the real live environment, in which case the event side timer is 5 seconds, because we're going to be using the onTimer to refresh the data every 5 seconds. And then we're going to set the last timer check to current time. So initializing this variable. And then we get to our first function. So we're going to call this function, and if this function fails, then in that case we say, well, we failed to initialize the symbols, and in that case the entire initialization fails. We're going to write this function, but here we're calling that function and we're saying if not, then print. Then we created these 5 handles, so we need to resize them, and we're going to resize them to the array size. In the parsing and initialization of the symbol, we will create the symbol arrays for these currencies. So it's going to be 1, 2, and 3. So then now we can resize the array to the number of members within the symbols array, which is going to happen here in this function. So it's going to be 3, because there are 3 currencies. And then we initialize all of the handles, but for every single currency in the symbol array. So we're going to loop through all the currencies, starting at 0, going through 0, 1, and 2, because there are 3 currencies. And for every one of them, we're going to create an instance of the MA, standard deviation, RSI, 96 ATR, and 672 ATR for that particular symbol index. So there are going to be 3 handles of MA, 3 handles of a standard deviation, 3 standards of RSI, and so on and so forth. Now, because we're going to be using the MA standard deviation to create or calculate the Bollinger Bands, and this is why we're sending here the Bollinger Band period to get the standard deviation and MA. Now guys, I have to go a little bit quicker, because if I explain every single line in detail, this video is probably going to be like 7 hours long, and nobody's going to watch it then. So that kills the entire purpose. If you have written the other years with me, then you probably are at a level where you can understand these. Now we're going to check if the RSI handle fails or the standard deviation handle fail. If any of them fail, then we just print that we failed to create the indicator for this symbol, and the initialization fails then. So now we have called this function. So let's go and create this one. I'm going to create a few sections. So the first section is, I'm going to call it symbol related functions. Then let's have another section which we're going to be using for, let's say, lot size functions. Then let's have one for grid related functions. Then let's have one for TP and SL related functions. One for closing the grids and trades slash drawdowns, and then at the end some general helping functions, so that we have sort of a structure. So now this parse and initialize symbol, we're going to put it here under symbol related functions. So we create it here. Okay, so let's first create a variable by the name symbols, and it's an array. And then we're going to get the symbols from this symbols variable that we created here. Symbols, so there are 3 of them. So we're going to take that and we're going to split it by using the character comma and store these values into this symbol array that we have created. So there are going to be 3 members here, and that's going to return the count of 3, which we are going to store in this variable symbol count. And then we say if the symbol count turns out to be greater than 0, so there is a value which is coming back and it is not the tester, then in that case we resize the array of the symbol array to symbol count. The symbol array, remember, the variable which has all the sub members from the structure. We resize that here to the symbol count, and this is why in our initialization, after doing the parsing, we could resize the moving average, standard deviation, RSI arrays to the symbol arrays, because here we have already resized the symbols array to the number of symbols which are available or what the user has inputted in the symbols variable. And then we're going to loop through all of the symbol counts. So starting at 0, going all the way up to 2, so 3, 0, 1, 2. And then we say symbol name is equal to whatever is the symbols I, get the value of the index from, because this is where we stored all the symbols. So we take this, we loop through it, and for every index we create the symbol name. And then we trim it left and right, because somebody might have put a blank, like I space. So in that case, we need to trim it. So we trim it left and we trim it right. And then if it comes back to be blank, then we print that the symbols is incorrect, check for extra commas and shit like that. And the symbol error list is true, and we return false, that we are not able to parse it. Otherwise, we run a function by the name initialize symbol data for this index in the symbol and send to it the symbol name, which is coming out of here. And then we close this if, that if the count was greater than 0 and it wasn't the tester. Well, otherwise, if it wasn't tester here, then we are in a tester, and in that case, the tester is only going to run it on whatever pair is selected here. So it's a single currency then. So in that case, the symbol array becomes 1. The symbol name becomes symbol, so whatever is the symbol selected here. And then initialize the symbol data with what we are doing here as well, but here we are sending the index and the symbol name. Here we send just 0 as the index and the symbol name, which is the symbol which is selected here. And for now I'm deleting this and we're going to come back to this. So only this, and then we just return true. So we have initialized the symbols, we have parsed it, we have put them into this array, we have populated the array of the symbols array. So now the symbols array variable has all of the currencies, and therefore all of these are now available to be updated by currency as well. Let's compile, and we have two errors, which is the unexpected end of program and unbalanced parentheses. Let's check here. Did we close? Yeah, properly. Let's go back on initialization. We're not closing it properly because we did not close this for loop. So we need to close this for loop. So if I close it, and now if I compile, still a fucking error. Oh, because we have created, we wrote these functions, symbol initialize symbol data here and here, but we haven't still created this. So now we are in this symbol related function. So let's create this function. So we're going to create this function, and to this we're going to be sending the index and the symbol name to initialize the data. Let's hit compile. And now we are okay. It was just missing the initialization of the symbol data. So let's just initialize all of the values that we have created in the structure, in this structure. So what we're doing here is in the parsing, we're going through the symbol count, and for every one of them we're getting the symbol name, and then we're passing that symbol name index and the symbol name here. So it's going to be run 3 times for each of the currencies, which is going to store the symbol name, the last time frame. I mean, currently we're just storing 0, 0, 0s and false and trues, but now we are able to, for example, for can buy and can sell, for every individual currency within the symbol array, the 3 currencies, we can set the can buy, can sell and other parameters separately for all 3 of them. So all of these variables are available 3 times because there are 3 currencies. Compile once again, no issues. Okay, so let's go back up, and on the initialization I want to make one change, which is here. Instead of printing that command, fail to indicator, I'm gonna add this part as well, which is check that all the input currencies are visible within the market watch window, because the most common reason that these handles can fail for different currencies is that you have here these 3 currencies input, but these are not available here. So if OutCAD wasn't here, MQL is not going to be able to load the indicators. If Australia, New Zealand and New Zealand CAD are not here in the market watch, you will get the error message that it failed, because it's not going to be able to load the indicators. This is the most common reason that these can fail. So let's say that check all the input currencies are available in the market watch window. That's it. Compile once again, no issues, and then we go to the OnTick function. Here we're going to start by creating a bool variable where we're going to check if it's a new bar on the main time frame. And then we're going to loop through all of the symbol arrays, so all 3 currencies, starting at 0, then going 1 and then 2. So loop through the 3 currencies. And then we're going to check that if we sent the symbol array symbol name, once again we're using these sub members of the currencies. So if I'm sending the first currency, the 0 index currency, and dot symbol name, it is getting the value from that structure. For the main time frame, current candle, get the I time, and if the I time is lower than or equal to whatever we had updated before in that currency symbol array as last main time frame update time, then in that case the time, it's not a new candle. So we set the new time frame, new bar for the main time frame variable to false. Otherwise it's a new candle, and then we set this variable to the time of the current candle, opening time, and we set it to true. So the next time it's going to come, then unless there is a new candle, this is going to fail, and then it's going to be false. And then if it is true, the new time frame, then we're going to update symbol information. We initialized the symbols, and now we're going to update the symbol information. And then we close the for loop, and this is our OnTick function for now. Now if I compile, I'm going to get an error because I haven't created the update symbol information, sending it the index value. So let's go down here and create this function. So this function, we're going to send the symbol index from this looping on OnTick, because we're looping through. So we're going to send the index value to this update symbol info. And if I close and compile, everything is fine so far. So let's start updating it. We get the value of the symbol name and store it into the symbol. And then we go for that symbol array, update the counter ++, so increase it by 1. So we're increasing the value which we initiated here as 0 will now become 1. So now this is keeping track of how many times the counter has updated. And then we're going to create an MQL datetime variable by the name tm current, and within that tm current we're going to store the value of the current time by using the time to start. So we're storing the value of the current time into the tm current. And what the tm current basically does is, now with tm current you can hit the dot, and for the time current that you have stored here, you can get the value of the day of the week, the day of the year, hour. So it creates a full structure. And this is why we are putting the current time into this structured time variable so we can get the value of the current hour and the current minute. And then we're going to store the value of the time into the current bar time and also into the previous bar time. We update this and then we update the value of the current bar time into the previous bar time. And this is on update of the symbol information. And then we create a bool variable by the name canTrade, and we're going to check if the trading is allowed and if the user has allowed opening new grids. And we're going to store the value into canTrade. So if trading is allowed and the user has allowed the opening of the new grid, then canTrade becomes true, otherwise it's false. And then we apply this value to can buy and can sell. So if it is allowed, then can buy is true and can sell is also true. Now let's go down to our general helping function, and here we're going to write this function is trading allowed. And here we're basically going to be checking four things. First of all, if it's MQL tester or it's MQL optimization, then return true, because in tester and optimization, trading is always allowed. Otherwise, if it's live environment, we create a variable allowed and we store in this the value of the terminal trade allowed, meaning here, is that turned on or is that turned off? If it is not allowed, if allowed is 0, so if it's not allowed, then return false for the trading allowed. Otherwise, check account trade expert is allowed, and if it's not allowed, then return false, which is here. Check if this is allowed. If it's not allowed, then return false because the trading is not allowed. And then the third thing is check that the broker side trading is allowed. So the broker is allowing trade. And then if it's not allowed, then return false. And if none of them, then just return true. Compile and we're fine. So let's go back up. So here we're checking that everything is allowed and the grid opening is allowed. So this is allowed, and then can buy is allowed and can sell is true as well. And now we're going to run through a lot of different conditions. So we're going to check if the main time frame has less than 1000 symbols, then in that case not enough historical data, and can buy and can sell are both false. So we were true here, but if this happens, then set it to false. Let's put a comment, check historical data. And then we're going to check the account balance or free margin, which is we get the free margin, and if it's less than 10, then in that case we say it's low margin, print the margin value, and we because we don't want to print the messages like every single tick, so we're going to start with last message as a date time variable 0, and then here we're going to print, and then we're going to set the last print message to time current. And then the next time we're going to check that the time current minus the last time message is greater than 60 minutes. So we're only printing it every 60 minutes. This 3600 is in seconds. So we only print this message every 60 minutes. And because the margin was lower, so we set the can buy and can sell to false. So if this is true, then can false. If this happens, can false. And then we're going to check the UID. Remember, the user can select the UID between 0 and 9. So we check here that if the UID is less than 0 or greater than 9, so it's not in between, then in that case again we print this message, and we only print it once. So we start with a false value for UID printed, and then if it's false, then we print, but then we set it to true, in which case the message is not going to be printed again, because it's never going to be false again once we have printed. And then can buy and can sell becomes false. So we're not allowed to sell or buy. And then we don't want to start trading on the very first bar when the initialization happens. So we're going to go through if the symbol array update counter is less than 2. Remember, we were updating the counter, the update counter plus plus. So starting from 0 is going to get updated, but it's happening on every new bar. So at least 2 bars after the initialization before we can start to trade. And this is why if it is less than 2, then can buy and can sell becomes false. And then we're going to check at the broker level by getting the trade mode for this symbol and asking for trade mode. And trade mode is whether or not the trading is allowed. Now, if the trade mode comes back to be disabled, then we're going to say can buy and can sell are both false. If the trade mode comes back that long only are allowed, then can sell becomes false. And if short only is allowed on the broker for this symbol, then can buy is false. After checking at the broker level, we are going to check user level, because remember we had the possibility to select allow buy, allow sell, or buy both, or allow both. So we're going to check if the allow to buy sell is 1, then only buy is allowed, so can sell is false. And if it is 2, then only can sell is allowed, then can buy is false. If it is 0, then both are allowed, so we don't need to do anything. And then we're going to get bar times after doing all of these checks. So we'll start by creating a variable date bar time, and we're going to get the current bar time from the symbol index which we just updated with the current bar. And then we create a variable by the name TM bar, and then we put this time, which is in the regular time format, into this MQL date time format TM bar, so that now we can get the .hour, .minute, .day, .month, and .year, and assign it to hour, minute, day, month, and the year for the bar. And now we can check the trading hours check, which is we're going to first get the bar minute and bar hour and multiply it by 100. So for example, 1430 becomes 1430 like this. And then we can take the start hour, multiply it by 100. So if the user has selected 1, that becomes 100. And stop trading, which becomes, so for example, if the user has selected 23, then that is going to become 2359, because we take 23 multiplied by 100 and then add 20 and 59. And if the user, for example, had selected 1, so 1 will become 100. So 1 hour becomes 100. So now we can check. We start with the time OK bool variable, creating it, and then we check if the stop time is greater than the start time, then it's a normal day. So because this is greater than this, so the trading starts earlier and finishes later. So in that case, we're going to check that if the current time here is greater than or equal to the start time, and the current time is smaller than or equal to the end time. So in that case, time is okay. But if this is not true, meaning the start time is bigger than the stop time, which means the user is starting at 1700 hours in the evening and finishing at 600 hours in the morning. In that case, we need to check that the current time is bigger than the start time, or the current time is smaller than the stop time, because we're starting at 1700 and going until 6 o'clock in the morning. So we cannot check for the and, we check for the or. So we get the time OK, and then we do a holiday check, which is to say if the month is 12 and the day is greater than 25, or the month is 1 January and the day bar is equal to or less than 3. So it's from 25th of December until the 23rd. In that case, time OK is false. So even though if it was OK here, it becomes false. And then we do one more validation check for the 15-minute boundaries, because our main time frame is 15 minutes. Then time OK and the bar minute is either 0 or 20 or 15 or 30 or 45. That's just an additional check that we have the correct bar minute coming back from this current bar time. And then we can integrate the can buy and can sell by saying if can buy was true and can time is true, then can buy stays true. But if can buy was true but the time OK is false, then also can buy becomes false. And same for the can sell. So we combine these two together to see whether or not both are true, in which case can buy is true. Otherwise, if either of them is false, then can buy becomes false. We're not allowed to buy or sell. Then we're going to update the value of within the symbol array for whatever is the current index, the closing price, and we assign to it the I close for the current symbol, because that is the index symbol for the main time frame, last candle. Okay, that done. Now we can go ahead with the indicators. So we're going to calculate the indicators. We create two buffer variables. with size 1 because we're only going to store one value in them. Then we get from the moving average for the current index, symbol index. So whether 3 currencies, so it's the 0 currency or the 1 currency or the second currency, get the moving average, the main line 0 because it's moving average, so main line is starting position 1, meaning the previous candle, and only get one value. And then the same for the standard deviation as well, and copy these values into these buffers that we have created. So get from these and copy into these. Once we have this populated and it's only one value, so we can now take that value and assign it to a variable by the name Bollinger Band moving average, and then Bollinger Band standard deviation, assigning this value here. 0 index because there is only one value, and buffers always start with 0, 1, 2. So if it's only one value, then it's going to be at index 0. And then we can calculate the Bollinger Band upper, which is going to be the moving average plus 2 times the standard deviation. That's the Bollinger Band upper. And minus 2 times the standard deviation is going to be the Bollinger Band lower. If you understand the Bollinger Band, you understand this logic as well. And then we have the highest bar check. Let's first get the count of the highest bar. Where is it? By getting the highest function, sending it the symbol main time frame mode high for the Bollinger Band period and the lowest bar. So now the E is going to go back like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then for example if this was the high, it will go like 5, 10, whatever, 15. Let's say this is bar number 19 and this is the lowest, which is bar number, I don't know, 23. So it's going to return the value of 19 and 23 here, and then using that we can get the value of the actual high in price by using the high function and high low function, by sending to it the value 19 and 23 to get the recent high price value of this candle and this candle. So we get the recent high and recent low, and then we create a digits variable where we store the value of the digits for the current symbol, and then we update the value of the Bollinger Band width for the symbols, all 3 of them, one after the other, by saying BP upper minus BP lower and normalizing it to the level number of digits for the symbol. So we update this value for all 3 symbols. So these members are going to be updated. And then we're going to use the RSI filter to see whether or not we should place the trade. So if RSI period is greater than 0 and RSI value is greater than 0, so the user has input proper values, then we create a buffer for RSI, and then we copy from RSI handle for the current symbol index only one value and put it into this buffer, and then take that value from the index 0 and assign it to an RSI variable so that we have the RSI value for the last bar. And then we say if can buy, whatever was the can buy, so if it was true, now you need to also check that the RSI is less than 50 minus the RSI value, because for our buy we want to have the value of the RSI below 35 or below 40. So if the user has selected 15, then it's 50 minus that 15, and for the sell it's the opposite, so it's 50 plus the RSI value, whatever the user has input here, the RSI value. So if he puts 20, then it's 30 and 70. If he puts 15, then it's 35 and 65. And that is what we are checking here, that for the can buy, RSI needs to be lower than 35, and for the sell, it needs to be higher than 65. And then we create a variable by the name close, and we update the value of the close price from the symbol index. Again, remember that array and then that is structure. So we get the value for the current array member, but for the sub member close price that we updated up here, we get the close price. And then we're going to do the close. I mean, if the can buy is still true, then check that if close is below the recent low and the recent low has a value, and for get sell, the close is above the recent high and the recent high has a value, so it's not an invalid recent high. So we check that again and update the can buy and can sell, and then we're going to do a maximum symbol check. So we're going to start with active symbol as 0, And then we're going to check by looping through the symbol arrays, all three symbols that we have in the currencies, looping through all of them, and we're going to check whether or not a grid exists. And if the grid exists, we need to write this function. And if the grid exists, then we're going to make the active symbol increase it by 1. So there is a grid on 1 symbol or 2 symbol or 3 symbol. And if the active symbols become more than the maximum symbols that the user has allowed, then in that case, the can buy and can sell becomes false as well. Remember here we had this maximum symbols. So how many symbols can have active grid at one point in time? We're going to write this function, but for now, let's go down to grid related functions, and we're just going to stub it. So we're just going to say for now, just return false. And what we're going to be sending to this grid is the symbol, the level, and the direction. Because what we might want to check, so you can use this function in different ways. So you can send it for buy direction. Does a grid exist for buy? Does a sell grid exist? Or does any grid exist? So this is what we're going to control from here. And then we can say level. So we can also check, has this grid now gotten to level 2? Or has this grid now gotten to level 3? So we can differentiate. And the third one is of course symbol. So for which symbol are we checking? So these are the three values we're going to send to this grid exist. What we are checking here is send the symbol of whatever is the current symbol in this iteration by sending the name, but then 0 and 0, meaning we don't care about levels and we don't care about the direction, the buy and sell. So if it's buy or sell, we don't care. If it's level, if the grid has opened up to level 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, don't care. As long as the grid exists, we say that the active symbol goes up by 1. And then based on the ATR values, we're going to apply a smart distance, which is basically, we're going to get the ATR buffer. Again, from the ATR handles, we're going to copy the values into ATR buffer 96 and ATR 672. So we can assign it to the variables ATR 96 and ATR 672. And then if it is a valid value, so ATR 672 is greater than epsilon. If it is a valid value, then we're going to update the symbol's smart distance multiplier with ATR 96 divided by ATR 672, which means that if the current volatility is bigger than the longer term volatility, then in that case, the value of this is going to turn out to be more than 1. And we store that into smart distance multiplier so that even though the user has said the distance of the grid is to be 35, but if he selects a smart distance, then that 35 is now going to be multiplied by this volatility factor as well. Now, this is a question mark. I mean, you might want to write it, you might not want to write it, which is the clamping of that multiplier between 1 and 1.5. So if this turns out to be a less than 1 value, meaning it's more volatile in 672 than in 96, in that case, we don't really want to do a smaller multiplier. We don't want to reduce the grid size from 35 downwards. So we clamp it to 1 by saying choose between whichever is the higher, 1 or the multiplier, which is here, which we have stored here. So if the multiplier turns out to be 0.9, for example, then which one is bigger, 1 or 0.9? 1 is bigger, so use 1. But if this is bigger than 1, if it is 1.3, then use 1.3. So using mathmax, we have clamped the lower value down to 1. And then this is the value which is going to come here. So for example, it might come back to, for example, if this was 1.8, then the mathmax is going to be 1.8. And then we use mathmin to say choose between 1.5, and if this turns out to be higher, 1.8, then it's math minimum, so take 1.5. And this way we are clamping the value of this smart distance multiplier between 1 and 1.5. So it never becomes like 2.3, because we don't want to increase the distance of the grid to like ridiculous levels. So here we had calculated it, And here we are clamping it by updating the value of the smart distance multiplier of whatever turns out to be. If it is between 1 and 1.5, then the smart distance multiplier will become, or will stay that value. But if it is bigger than 1.5, then it's going to become 1.5. And if it turns out to be less than 1.5, then it's going to become 1. So we are clamping. And then we're going to do a day tracking, which is we're going to get the day of the week from the TM bar variable that we had created before, the TM bar. So we get the day of the week, and then if day of the week is not equal to the last day of the week, so we check again, and the symbol there is not 0, so it's not the first update, then in that case we change the trading day allowed today to whatever was the previous day. So if it was allowed to trade yesterday, we allow it to today, so we roll it over. And then we change the previous day to true as well. So we're basically rolling over the period allowed from one day to another day. So if it is so later on, if can buy was true on one day, then it is can true on the next day as well. And then can buy becomes whatever in the end comes out to be the trading day allowed today versus this. So if it is allowed today and can buy is also true from all the previous conditions, then it remains true. If it wasn't allowed today, then can buy even though all the previous conditions were true, but because of the drawdown, for example, if this becomes false, then this becomes false as well. Then we do a margin level check, that if the minimum free margin that the user has set is greater than epsilon, so there is a value that the user has selected here is minimum free margin, is greater than epsilon, and remember the epsilon value is 0.000, so it's greater than that, so it is a valid value, and the account margin level is less than whatever the user has put, so the margin level has dropped below. So in that case, we will also set the can buy and can sell to false. But before that, we print this message once every 60 minutes or 180 seconds. So we say this is 0, first time, because it's a static variable, so the first time when we're creating it is 0. Then if the current time minus this is greater than 1800 seconds, then print this and then set this to time current. So the next time when we come back, unless the time current has now become again greater by 1800, we don't print it again. And then we're going to check for the maximum drawdowns, and we're going to create that function. But let's suppose if the drawdown is triggered, then we say if drawdown is triggered, or the stop trading until restart has triggered, or cooldown hours is greater than 0, then we're going to print a message and we're going to loop through the reason. So if the drawdown is triggered, then the reason is drawdown triggered. If this is true, then the reason is drawdown restart required. And if this is true, then drawdown cooldown period, these many number of hours. And then we print this, that the trading is blocked and the reason is whatever, one of these three. And then again, we set this in a way like before, so that this message is only printed every 60 minutes. And then the can buy and can sell becomes false. So this is the drawdown check. And we're actually going to create this separately. But for now, let's go down to drawdowns, grades, trades, and drawdowns section. And I'm going to just stub it for now. So for now, I don't know, return false. Well, in fact, it's a void, so it doesn't have to return anything. So I'm just going to stub it for now. We come back and we are going to look at the last process hour. If the last process hour is less than the current hour, then the cooldown hours, which once it has been triggered, we drop it down by 1. And then if the cooldown hour becomes less than 0, because once it gets to 0 on the next turn, by saying -1 is going to become -1. In that case, we reset it back to 0. And then if the drawdown was triggered, but now when we're looping through the array size and getting the total lots in a grid, and that turns out to be 0, so less than epsilon, then in that case drawdown trigger becomes false again. So this is just resetting that, and we're going to write this function. But what we're basically doing here is that if the drawdown was triggered during the check of the max drawdown, then we are rechecking, or because in the next loop, we're going to get the total lots on the current by looping through all the currencies, the total lots in grids, and then if the total lots come back as is smaller than epsilon, so it's 0, then in that case, well, there is no position, so there is no drawdown. And this can happen because we closed all the position or something like this. And because we will be calling this function, so let's go down to the grid related function, and for now I'm just going to stub it. We can get the total lots in a grid for only buy, for only sell, or both, for levels above 2 or above 3, or all the levels, and use original lot size that we're going to come back to when I'm going to explain to you this setting of grid level to start. Because I don't know if you remember grid level to start, meaning like we put dummy trades, 0.01 minimum lots until a certain level, and then we go proper lotting. So do we use original? And that this is related to that one. But you will understand this as we go down through the functions and write this function. But let's come back here to where we were. And now we can actually update the symbol array for this currency, the sub-member can buy, to whatever now is the value of the coin can buy after all of these checks. If it is still true, then it's true, otherwise false. And for the cancel, and then we set the value of the grid open for the currency as false. We update the tick counter. These are the global variables which we created here. Last update minute, last time of check, and those kind of things. So we update it by 1, and the last process hour becomes current hour. And then we send the initial order, and we're sending the initial order, not the grid levels, the initial order, by sending the symbol index. Because if can buy is true and can sell is true, then we send the initial order. If I compile now, I have this send initial order. Okay, let's remove this line for now. And if I compile, everything is fine. And because now we are calling this function, which we're going to write next, this is why we got this error. So everything is fine for now. We compiled, and now we're going to go ahead and try and send the initial order. So let's create it, and it's a void, so it's not going to return any value. And then what we're going to be sending to it is just the symbol index. So that's the only thing we send to it. Now from that symbol index, we can get the name of the symbol by using symbol array, symbol index dot, so the member, sub-members, and assign it to symbol. And then we're going to do a very quick check if trading is allowed. That is the function we wrote here. And then we're going to also check this condition, which is can buy is false, because we're checking for not, and can sell is also false, which basically means that you cannot buy, you cannot sell. So what the fuck are we doing here? So we just return, we exit the function. And if not trading allowed, then also return, because if trading is not allowed, what's the point of continuing forward? But if trading is allowed and either can buy is true or can sell is true or both are true, then we're going to check the total number of active symbols, which we also did here. I know just like before coming here we did this, but by the time we come here, it might also be that you have another symbol which opens up the trade. And in that case, the maximum, the active number of active symbols might change. So we do a quick check here as well. Then we do a check for the spreads. So let's get the spread, as symbol is spread. And then if a spread is greater than the maximum spread that the user has provided, but the user has provided the spread in pips, while the spreads here are in points. So we need to get a multiplier for the symbol so that we can convert both into the same apple-to-apple comparison. And then if the maximum spread is bigger than epsilon, so the user has provided a value. Then if the spread is bigger, current spreads, then we basically spreads are too high, so we're not going to open up a trade. And we're going to write this function. So let's go down to the bottom where we have the helper functions, and here let's just write get pip multiplier, and it's a very simple one. You get the digits from the broker, and if the digit is 5 or 3, then return 10, because 5 basically means, let's say Euro USD, GBP USD, they have 5 decimals, and the last decimal is a point, and the pip value is actually 10 points. So this is why we're returning 10 in case of 5 and 3, and 3 because of the JPY pairs. So you have USD JPY, GBP JPY, and they have 3 digits. But in all other cases, return 1, because in all other cases, your pip and your points are exactly the same. So that's our pip multiplier. So we check the spread. So we try to open the buy order. We check the symbol array can buy. So whatever is the symbol array, symbol index can buy, meaning on the current currency. If the can buy is true, so we can buy. So all of the conditions that we wrote are basically, all of them are met. Then we're going to check very quickly allow hedging, and we're going to create a bool variable, so true or false, and we're going to check for allow hedging. If the user has selected allow hedging as true, which means you can trade both buy and sell direction at the same time, then if it is true, then we're going to check if the grid exists by sending the value of 1, which is the value of the buy. We're going to write this function, but what we're going to write in this function is 3 things: symbol, level, and direction. So we can specify what we're checking. So we are checking for buys then. And -1 basically here for the level means we don't care. We don't care about levels, but we do care about buy. So if hedging is allowed, then we check if there is already a buy grid existing. And if hedging is not allowed, then we check if there is any grid at all for the hash position, that if hedging is allowed, then check that the grid doesn't exist for buys, because we're saying not grid exists. And if the grid doesn't exist for buy, that means hash position is true. And if hedging is not allowed, then we are going to look for anything at all. Then in that case, we check if no grid is available, because we're saying not grid exists. So if no grid exists at all, whether buy or sell, then hash position becomes true. And if hash position comes out to be true, then we send the order by using the function open market order, which we will write, sending it again the symbol index so that it knows which symbol, and then telling it that we're going to open the buy order. And then we say try to open the sell order, which is the reverse logic. So hash position if allow hedging. Now we're going to check for sell grids and all of the grids. So if hedging is allowed, then we check that the sell doesn't exist. If the sell doesn't exist, then hash position is true. And if hedging is not allowed, then any grid at all, if it exists, then it's false. And if it doesn't exist, then it's true. And then we're going to open the market order by sending it the order type sell. And now we're going to go to open the market order. So what we are sending to the open market order is symbol index and order type as enum order type. And then once again, we convert the index into the name of the symbol. And then we start with the max attempt of 10. So this is for every order, we're only going to try it 10 times. And if it fails after 10 times, we give up. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start at attempt 0, going all the way to as long as attempt is less than max attempts and attempt plus plus. So 10 times we're going to do this loop. We're going to start by saying, well, the lot size is going to be calculate lot size. And then if lot size from here turns out to be less than epsilon, so it's less than 0.0001, so then it's too small, so we print this. And then we're going to check for margins. So we're going to start by saying double margin, creating a variable, assigning it the value 0. And then we're going to check a few things. The first one is run the order calculate margin, sending the order type, which we know from here, the symbol, the lot size, which we're going to calculate here. And then we're going to say if it's order type buy, then use ask, otherwise use bid, and copy paste the value into this margin variable. Now, if this function fails, and this is what we're saying, if this function fails, or if the margin that we stored here comes out to be less than or equal to 0, or if the margin that comes out here is bigger than what is available as free margin, then in that case we say not enough money. And then if the order type was order type buy, then we change the can buy to false and can sell to false otherwise for the symbol index that we have currently sent here. So for that currency, we change the can buy and can sell to false because there's not enough money. By the way, we are here calling this function. So let's go down, and for now, we're just gonna stub it to return 0.01. Coming back, we're gonna calculate the unique magic number for that particular trade. And this is what we are gonna do here is we're gonna start with the base magic number, which is 84,570 in our case, which is hard coded in the EA. We don't ask the user to provide it, 84570. And then let's suppose the user has selected the UID as 0. So it's the very first instance that he's running. So this is going to become 84570 plus 0. So it will remain as 84570. Then what we're going to do is we're going to get the number of digits in this magic base. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it has 5 digits. And then we're going to say if the order type is buy, then 1, otherwise 2. So let's say in case of buy, it's going to be 1. In case of sell, it's going to be 2. And then we create the magic number by saying take 10 raised to the power digits plus 2. So 10 raised to the power 7. 5 digits plus 2. So raised to the power 7, which is going to be equal to 10 million without the commas. So 10 million. Then multiply it with the direction. So for buy, it's going to be 1. And then add to it the magic number 84570, but multiplied by 100. So it's actually going to be 84570 00. So for the buy, it's going to turn out to be 184570 and then 00. And this is where this is the magic number for the EA. This 1 is the direction, and this 00 is the grid. So this is the 00 level. So base level, then level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. And in the same breath, for the sell order, because for the sell order, the direction equals 2. So when we multiply it by 2, it will become, this value is going to be multiplied by 2 instead of 1. So in that case, the value which is going to come out to be is 24570 00. So our buy is going to be 1 and our sell is going to be 2. So this is going to be the unique ID for that trade, which has the magic number, which has the direction, and which has the level. So this is how we will create the magic numbers, and this is how we will read them as well. And here we are doing the base trade. We are not opening up a grid yet. And then let's prepare a comment. So we say comment equals to trade comment, and then we print that we are sending a buy or the sell order, an attempt number, whatever is the attempt number, +1 because the loop starts at 0. And then we're going to set the trade expert magic number to the magic number that we have just created, and set the standard deviation to whatever is the max slippage, get the multiplier. So get the max slippage that the user has provided and use our get pip multiplier at the bottom to do the multiplication, get it at the right pip value for that symbol, and then we actually send the trade. So we create a success variable bool, and then we send if the order type, check if the order type is buy. If it is buy, then trade.buy, send the lot size, symbol, no TP, no SL, and comment. And if the trade is sell, then trade.sell, lot size, symbol, well, no price, no stop loss, and no TP. Current price, no stop loss, no TP, and the comment. And then we're going to check if success, meaning like if the order went through, then in that case we print the comment that this order has opened. And in that case, we update the status that if the order type was buy, then for the current symbol index, can buy becomes false because we have already bought, and the last grid time becomes current time, so that we are updating when was the last trade taken. Otherwise, can sell. So this was for order type buy, so this is for order type sell. So we change the can sell to false because we have already sold, and we update the last sell grid time to time current, meaning this is when the last trade in the grid for this symbol was taken. And then we change the grid open value to true, because now there is a grid open, and OPO triggered is also true. And OPO triggered is open price only, and this we are going to use in the closing when we're going to look at the closing. So here we close this function of if it's successful, then do this. But if the trade was not successful, so if it was successful, do this. But if it was not successful, then we print that failed to open this, get the description and the result code. But remember, we were going to do this 10 times, this entire thing. We're going to do 10 attempts. But in case if it's a fatal error, meaning if the red code is invalid, or invalid volume, or no money, or market closed, or trade disabled, if one of these come back from the broker, then there is no point in doing a retry. So in that case, we just set the can buy to false and can sell to false and return, meaning exit the function. And then just sleep for 5,000 seconds. And here we close this else, because this, so if it failed, sleep for 5,000 before attempting again. And then we close this entire for loop as well. And then we close the function. Okay, if we compile, I don't have any errors. Now there are some stub functions. So we're gonna get a 0.01 calculate lot size, so things like those. But at least now we have a working EA. Let's go back to the top initialization function, and here we're gonna remove, or we're gonna comment out the tester. So don't hide the test, don't hide the indicators. And then if I run, now we're gonna see the indicators as well. So when we get our first trade, here we get our first trade, and we can see the value of the RSI has gone up to 65, I think. Let's run it a little bit more. Yeah. So here the value of RSI went above 65. And this is why the first trade was opened here. Now we still haven't built the grid logic, so it's just going to continue to open trades after trades after trades on every new candle, every time the RSI is greater than 70. But at least this is working. So we have a working EA now on the lot size 0.01. And now we can start to work on the volume or lot sizes, and then we're going to work on the gridding system. This is all the rationale of opening the trades, and now we come down to lot sizing functions.